Welcome to CBC Windsor News at 6. I'm Meg Roberts. Thanks so much for spending part of your evening with us tonight. Relatives of a Muslim family struck down by a white nationalist in London are describing their deep pain and loss today. The sentencing hearing has started with victim impact statements. Plus, the opening date for the Gordie Howe International Bridge has been pushed back by months. That delay coming at a price tag of millions. And the city's 2024 draft budget will be released to the public Monday. It'll be the first one under the new strong mayor powers. We have more on that tonight. It's been a difficult and emotional day for many inside a London courtroom. Victim impact statements began at the sentencing hearing for Nathaniel Veltman. He was convicted of murder by a Windsor jury in the deaths of members of a Muslim family back in 2021. CBC's Megan Fitzpatrick reports.
Loved ones of the Afzal family said it was impossible to put their pain into words, but they tried their best today in a London courtroom. Relatives delivered emotional victim impact statements as part of the sentencing hearing for Nathaniel Veltman. The 23-year-old was found guilty in November, convicted of 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of attempted murder for the little boy who survived but is now an orphan. His parents, Mediha and Salman, were killed, along with his sister Yumna and his grandmother Talat. Veltman deliberately struck them with his pickup truck while they were out for an evening walk in June of 2021. Prosecutors allege Veltman targeted them because they were Muslim and that he was motivated by white nationalist ideology. One of the relatives who spoke today looked directly at Veltman and told him, "You have taken the most beautiful people from my life." The family, originally from Pakistan, were described as caring, compassionate people, always eager to help others. Salman was a physiotherapist, Mediha an engineer who was working on her PhD. Their daughter, Yumna, 15, was described as intelligent and a talented artist. Her grandmother, Talat, a beautiful soul, always smiling. The family members spoke of the toll the murders have taken on them physically and emotionally. By day, they have trouble going about their routines and concentrating at work. By night, they have trouble sleeping, and when they do, they have nightmares about what happened. Outside the court, Muslim leaders urged action to combat Islamophobia.
We must remember that hate is a direct threat to the safety and security of all Canadians. As we prepare to listen with open hearts to the impacts that the worst form of Islamophobia has wrought on the City of London and its diverse Muslim community, we must reflect as a nation on how we ensure that this does not happen ever again.
There were so many victim impact statements submitted to the court that a second day was added to hear them. That will take place tomorrow. Later in the month, attorneys for the Crown and the defense will make arguments related to Veltman's sentencing. He is facing life in prison with no chance of parole for 25 years for the first-degree murder convictions. The judge will have to decide on a sentence for the attempted murder conviction. She's also likely to determine whether the crimes amounted to terrorism. Megan Fitzpatrick, CBC News, London.
The Gordie Howe International Bridge is going to take much longer and cost a lot more money than originally planned. The CBC's Dale Molnar brings us the details.
Within the last 6 months, bridge officials said the Gordie Howe International Bridge planned for it to open later this year. Today, we learned that likely won't happen until September of next year. The price tag is going up $700 million, too, with a new estimated cost of $6.4 billion. The Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority blames the costs and delays on the pandemic and inflation, and because the federal government agreed to absorb the costs of unforeseeable circumstances, that's where the extra money will be coming from.
Our contract allows for, in certain circumstances, risks to be shared when it comes to cost and schedule, and this is an example. The pandemic is an example of one of those shared risks.
Grondin says it will just take the federal government longer to break even on the bridge with the money collected on the tolls. The delay comes as a disappointment to those in Sandwich Town who will have to put up with Ambassador Bridge traffic longer. But the Bridge Authority will be expanding its community benefits program for another year. That means half of $3 million earmarked for projects on both sides of the river will be spent on projects there.
Well, it has to be nonprofit. Of course, not everybody can apply for that. But what I like to see is more done for the children of the area and to address the poverty of the area.
We're all excited. Of course, delays are disappointing, but you sometimes, like I said, the scope of the project is a large one, and so we can understand the delays it takes.
However, certain types of hazardous materials will be allowed across the Gordie Howe International Bridge. So with this delay, that means that industries such as the Nexstar battery plant will have to ship their goods to Sarnia for a longer period of time. The Ambassador Bridge has applied to the state of Michigan to allow some hazardous materials that are currently banned to be transported over the bridge, but Windsor West MP Brian Massey says he is still against it for environmental reasons.
And unfortunately, it will take a little bit more transportation logistics issues to come to fruition here. But at the same time, I'm not willing to risk, decades upon decades of the people that follow me having to deal with the fallout of poisoned water.
Vehicles won't start using the bridge until sometime later in the fall of 2025. Massey will push for commercial traffic to begin flowing sooner than that. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
Windsor's mayor will unveil his proposed city budget on Monday. It will be the first under the new strong mayor powers. CBC's Chris Ensing explains what's new.
Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens is always front and center when the proposed budget gets presented to the public. He's the one who explains how the city wants to spend your tax dollars. This year it will be no different, except he has more power and more control. These are powers that are handed to him through the strong mayor powers, which council let him have when they voted in favor of a pledge to build more housing, which in turn would unlock more money from the provincial government if they reach those targets. These powers were most notably used by the mayor back in November when he fired the city's top lawyer and the head of infrastructure services. In budget situations now, this means that the mayor presents and prepares the budget with the help of city staff and input from city councillors, where in the past city council would direct staff who would present it to the rest of council. Now, this also changes how the process all gets passed. In the past, a majority would be able to approve a line item, but now there will be an ability for councillors to offer amendments to the mayor's budget. He'll have a veto power that can squash those amendments unless 7 members or 2/3 of council votes to override that veto power. Now, what are we looking at as far as what's inside of this budget? Well, across Windsor-Essex, we've seen tax hikes as high as 8.2% out in Kingsville, as low as 3.8% in Leamington. We're getting a taste of what we'll see or what the asks will be in this budget from Transit Windsor. They say that in 2024, they'll need $4 million more to offer the same services that they did in 2023. They say the main pressure points that are driving costs there are staff costs that have increased, as well as the price of fuel. Now, the public can still get involved in all of this process just as before. There will be public deliberations held. This will all play out in council chambers. Those dates have yet to be made public. They are expected to happen at the end of the month. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
More than 1,100 items have been seized by Windsor Regional Hospital using their weapons detectors since they were installed in October. As according to the hospital's CEO, he made the announcement at the hospital's board's monthly meeting within the last hour. The CEO says that more than 600 of the items detected were knives, but it also found things like drugs and brass knuckles. The CEO says no guns were found.
I really applaud our board of directors when we brought this forward for supporting it and understanding the rationale for it. We said we would look at expanding it across other parts of the hospital. We're not quite there yet, but it sure is trending in that direction, that we would be looking at this technology on a much broader scale to other parts of the hospital, considering the numbers we have seen in the emergency department with just over 2 months of data.
Canada Post has selected a former Windsor resident to be on its 2024 stamps. Marianne Shadd, an abolitionist and first Black female newspaper publisher, will be on a stamp issued ahead of Black History Month. Shadd founded the Provincial Freeman, the third anti-slavery newspaper in Canada. We spoke with a relative of hers earlier today on what this means for the family and also the country.
And Shad Carey, as well as the other folks who have been featured in the past, really deserve that spotlight. They deserve to be better known. And I think that this is a great way to make sure that it's not just locally distributed information or locally talked about, but something that people in every part of this country can have access to. This is someone who really has been slept on. You know, she's not been taught as adequately as she should be. She's not been as much a part of the conversation as she should be, and it's about time.
You might not know what murmuration is, but you've probably seen it. It's an interesting bird behavior. We saw a video shot in Amherstburg of a number of starlings participating, and it left many of us here at CBC Windsor scratching our heads. So to find out what exactly is happening in the video and why, we turn to an expert to find out.
It's known as a murmuration of fairly large flock of starlings. It's quite impressive and an impressive display. Murmurations are gatherings of considerably large flocks of starlings. They usually occur in the late afternoon or evening. Outside of the breeding season, starlings gather in fairly large flocks and forage during the day. And during the late afternoon and evening, these flocks gather into what may be called a super flock in preparation to head for the roosting areas. And as you can see by the video, these flocks can number in the thousands or even tens of thousands. Murmuration refers to the murmuring sound of the birds' calls and their low-level wing beat sounds in these huge flocks. It's backed up by quite good evidence, actually, that the murmuration is a way of avoiding or confusing predators. It's kind of amazing when you watch those huge flock of birds flying in very close proximity to each other, and you never see a collision. That kind of movement confuses raptors, so they can't actually pick out an individual bird to prey upon. But they are the only bird in North America that displays that activity. They're actually an invasive species in North America, and not very well liked by farmers or naturalists, as they do raid crops. And they also usurp the nesting cavities of local birds. It was around 1890, a group of Americans of British descent decided they'd like to have these familiar birds in North America. So they imported about 100 of them to Central Park in New York. And the tens of millions of starlings in North America today are thought to be descendants of that initial flock.
This week's Rose City Rewind, a tribute to all our red-headed loved ones. On January 3rd in 1985, dozens of red-haired individuals traveled to Detroit for a group photo. This report done by former CBC reporter Kim Christie.
They ranged from little reds to big reds, in all the shades imaginable. Singles and families. Red, red, red. Many were brought by mothers.
My mother dragged me.
And fathers.
One of the reasons his brother was very similar to that, and you can see with his brother that he's going to be very red.
Others filled out questionnaires to advance the collective knowledge of redheads and highlight redhead achievers.
Stephanie Powers, Lucille Ball, Brenda Starr.
Organizers were flushed with success.
So why are you doing this?
Well, it was an idea of my editors, and we were going to just get a good photo. We never in a million years expected to see this many people. We thought we'd get 60, maybe 100. So at first it was funny, now it's almost scary.
Oh, so what do the numbers tell you?
It tells me that there's a lot of red-headed people here. They love having red hair, and they're a lot of fun.
After the questionnaire, the Redheads trooped to Joe Louis Arena for a group photo. Take a good look. Red. Everyone red. They appreciated the attention.
So do you think you're finally getting the recognition you deserve?
Yeah! Who says blondes have more fun? Kim Christie, CBC News, Detroit.
We're seeing those temperatures drop a little, but overall it's been a pretty mild winter. Coming up, we chat with some of you about what you think of this season's weather. Winter has gotten off to a bit of an odd start. It's already January and we've barely seen any snow with lots of gray. And it hasn't gone unnoticed on the streets of Windsor. Our Josiah Sinanen headed out to see how people are feeling about this warmer winter.
Hi everyone, it's Josiah Sinanen. We're here on Wyandotte today and we're asking Windsorites how they feel about this strange winter weather we've had. Thick clouds, no snow, and we're asking people what mood they would describe this winter with. Let's hit the streets and find out. If you had to describe this winter with a mood, what mood would you give this winter?
Oh, a bit glum, solemn, perhaps. For me anyway. I love snow and I love winter, so I'm kind of a rarity, but just having the sun out today feels great. I don't know, I can't stand the long stretches of no sun, and having a snowless winter kind of stinks for me too. I know a lot of people like it, but not me.
Probably sassy.
Yeah. Oh, tell me more about sassy.
I don't know, it's all over the place, you know what I mean? I feel like it's coming at me all the time. It's always so dark and moody.
Yeah, okay, so a little like temperamental.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm thinking like mysterious. Yeah. Never lets you know its next move.
I like that, maybe a little poetic. Do you feel inspired by that?
I do. Very poetic.
Okay, what about you?
I was just gonna say strange. I miss the snow a little bit. I like the snow.
What difference has not having snow made for you, like mood-wise yourself?
I mean, I don't like the cold, so that's a plus. Like, that's positive, but I mean, like, the weather, like, with snow and Christmas, like, that goes together, so that was upsetting.
I'm gonna go with spicy.
Can you get into that a bit more? What do you mean by spicy?
Usually this time of year, I feel like I'm not doing as much, but then with the weather not being as bad as it usually is, it's like I feel more, awake, more wanting to do things. Contrast can be beautiful sometimes. Like outside can be really dark and gloomy, but the inside can be nice and warm. So
I don't want to be depressing, but I want to say like kind of like you said, a little glum. That today's beautiful. Yeah. Nice sunny blue sky. It definitely brings the mood up.
Have you felt a little glum because of the weather, would you say?
A little bit. I purchased a little sun lamp actually. Plus I work in the basement here, so it's hard to get some sunshine, but
so you need that vitamin D somehow.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, joining us live now is Josiah. I hope you had a great Christmas and New Year's.
Thank you so much, Meg. You as well. And you know what? Let me pose that same question that I posed to our Windsorites earlier today. If you had to describe this winter with a mood, what would you choose?
I'm going to choose the word, and this might be a little dramatic, but dispirited, which means having lost enthusiasm. And you know me, I'm a pretty enthusiastic person, but this weather, it just gets me down. Yeah. What about you?
You know what, Meg? I am kind of on the same page, but I'm going to flip the script a little bit, and I'm going to go with what one of those people said, poetic.
Poetic.
And I think what it is, that overcast sky, looking out at Lake Erie, it just makes me want to go write a sonata. And you know what? And I don't like the snow either, so I'm staying positive over here.
I love the positivity. I wish we could maybe switch mentalities because I find nothing poetic about this. I want the sun. Speaking about the weather, what are we looking forward to this week?
Yeah, so Meg, a couple changes in what we're used to here. Right now, we're sitting at a crisp 4 with a clear sky. Those clouds are kind of away for right now. And those temperatures are dropping to a low of -7 tonight. And some flurries might be in the week ahead, so maybe that'll cheer you up a little bit. Let's take a look at our 5-day forecast now. So tomorrow, Friday, we're looking at a high of 1, mainly cloudy, but still with some sun peeking through, which has been a great relief, as we heard today from people on the streets. Saturday, we have a high of 0, that freezing point, making for a 30% chance of flurries continuing into the evening. Sunday, that 30% chance of flurries continues with a high of 1. Monday, the sun returns with some clouds, a high of 1, and Tuesday, we're looking at either rain or snow throughout the day with a high of 2.
All right. We've got a mix of a lot of stuff in there.
That was a great all right, yeah, exactly.
All right, that's all I have. It seems like we're going to be going back and forth for a little while.
Exactly. So. Temperamental, moody, sassy, as that one person said.
A little bit of sun.
A little bit of sun.
Snow.
It should be good.
Thank you very much for that. That is
Thank you, Meg.
Josiah Sinanen. Canadian cell phone bill prices are among the highest in the world, and some plans might be getting even more expensive. That's coming up. Officials in Hamas-run Gaza say 125 people are dead after another day of Israeli bombardment. The deadliest incident reported today was in the south.
The prices Canadians pay to use their mobile phones could be rising. It's not going over well for some.
This is insane because we're already paying for like way too much.
Any increases, right? There's enough expenses going on right now.
Horrific. I think this is unacceptable, especially in the current financial crisis.
I can't pay any more for Rogers.
Rogers Communications has confirmed some plans are going up. Customers who aren't on a contract could see price hikes of up to $9 more a month. Marketers say this could be a way to encourage customers to lock in.
So in that way, the customer maybe wins and the telecommunication provider wins in the sense that they're not going to lose the customer.
After its merger with Shaw went through, Rogers' CEO said prices are going to come down. But it's not just Rogers hiking. Some Bell customers have told us their prices are going up too. Bell didn't respond to CBC News questions. While Statistics Canada reports have said mobile service costs have dropped recently, Canadian mobile costs are sometimes ranked as pricier than other countries.
It could be cheaper to go to the US, go to France, get a cell phone there, pay the roaming fee, have an international number in Canada, and that you would pay less after all or overall. So I think that reminds us that we need to do more or be able to think differently about what we're paying for and why we're paying for it.
Rogers has pointed out that it's investing a lot in its networks and that it offers a low-cost $25 plan. But that low-cost plan is only available to some Canadians, such as those on social assistance programs. When the Rogers and Shaw merger was approved, the government said costs should come down or it would take action. But that deal did not appear to include anything to stop Rogers from charging some Canadians $9 extra each month. Anis Hidari, CBC News, Calgary.
Apologies about that. A clip has misfired. Now, a Prague zoo is showing off the newest kid in town, born just 2 days ago. This baby is a western lowland gorilla, the firstborn of 10-year-old female Dooney. Zoo officials say the birth is important to these highly social animals. Successful breeding is also necessary to save what is a critically endangered species. Their population in the wild remains threatened by habitat loss and being hunted for the bushmeat trade. These elusive apes live in dense and remote rainforests of Central Africa. Well, that's it for CBC Windsor News. Don't forget, for news anytime, you can go to our website at cbc.ca/Windsor. You can also download the CBC News app for stories that matter most to you. And don't forget to watch The National tonight at 9 on CBC News Network, 10 p.m. on the CBC News app, CBC TV, and streaming on CBC Gem and CBC Explore. Thanks so much for tuning in. Looking forward to seeing you back here tomorrow night.